He joined an alien dating show for fun. Now he's the husband of a royal alien trio. The accidental groom Marcus. Webb's head pounded like a construction site as consciousness slowly crept back into his skull. The last thing he remembered was signing up for what he thought was a reality dating show called Cosmic Hearts in downtown Los Angeles. The producer had promised easy money for a few days of filming, and Marcus desperately needed cash to pay his rent. Now he found himself lying on something that definitely wasn't his lumpy mattress. The surface beneath him felt like liquid silk, and the air hummed with an energy that made his teeth tingle. When he finally managed to crack open his eyes, the sight above him nearly sent him tumbling off the bed. The ceiling wasn't a ceiling at all, but a transparent dome showing the vast expanse of space. Stars streaked past in brilliant lines of light, and nebulae swirled in colors he'd never seen before. Either someone had drugged him with the most incredible hallucinogen ever created, or he was no longer on Earth. "Good morning, husband," came a melodious voice from somewhere nearby. Marcus bolted upright so fast that spots danced across his vision. Standing at the foot of the bed were three women who looked like they'd stepped out of a science fiction movie. The first had skin that shifted between blue and silver like moonlight on water, with long white hair that seemed to move independently of any breeze. Her eyes were the color of deep ocean, and she wore what appeared to be liquid metal, formed into an elegant dress. The second woman had emerald green skin with intricate golden patterns that pulsed with soft light. Her hair was a cascade of copper curls, and her smile revealed teeth that sparkled like diamonds. She wore armor that looked both protective and ceremonial, covered in jewels that caught the starlight streaming through the dome. The third was the most alien yet somehow familiar. Her skin was a warm amber color with scales that caught the light like precious stones. Her hair was jet black with streaks of silver, and her eyes were golden with vertical pupils like a cat's. She wore flowing robes that seemed to be made of the night sky itself, complete with tiny stars that twinkled as she moved. "I'm sorry, what?" Marcus managed to croak, his voice sounding like he'd been gargling gravel. "Husband," the blue-skinned woman repeated, her accent musical and strange. "I am Princess Zephyra of the Aquanis Empire. These are my sister wives, Princess Verdania of the Forest Worlds, and Princess Solara of the Desert Kingdoms. And you, Marcus, Webb of Earth, are now our bonded mate according to the sacred laws of the Triad Alliance." Marcus stared at them, waiting for someone to jump out and yell, "Surprise!" or for a camera crew to emerge from behind the furniture. When neither happened, he started laughing. Not the kind of laughter that comes from joy, but the kind that bubbles up when reality decides to take a hard left turn into crazy town. "This is a joke, right?" he said between gasps. "Some kind of elaborate prank show? Where are the cameras?" Verdania stepped forward, her golden patterns pulsing brighter. "I understand your confusion, Marcus. The translation matrix in your brain is still adjusting. But I assure you, this is no deception. Yesterday, you participated in what your people call a reality show. What you didn't realize is that Cosmic Hearts was actually a legitimate mating ceremony broadcast across 17 different star systems." "The ceremony was quite beautiful," Solara added, her golden eyes gleaming with what might have been amusement. "Though you did seem rather dazed throughout most of it. We assumed it was pre-bonding nerves." Marcus felt the blood drain from his face. "Ceremony? What ceremony? I thought I was just answering questions about my ideal partner." "You were," Zephyra said gently. "And your answers matched our compatibility profiles with 97% accuracy, the highest match rate recorded in Alliance history. When you accepted the ceremonial drink and spoke the binding words, the marriage became official under both human and Alliance law." "What binding words?" Marcus practically shrieked. "When asked if you would take us as your partners for better or worse, you said, 'I do,'" Verdania replied. 3 times once for each of us." Marcus buried his face in his hands. He vaguely remembered being very thirsty during the filming and drinking something that tasted like liquid starlight. And yes, he might have said, "I do," a few times, thinking, it was part of the show's script. "This can't be legal," he muttered through his fingers. "Actually it is," came a new voice. A holographic figure materialized beside the bed. a woman in what looked like a business suit made of light. "I am Aria, the Alliance Registry Intelligence Assistant. Your marriage has been filed with both Earth's legal system and the Galactic Alliance. Congratulations. You are now legally wed to 3 of the most powerful princesses in known space." Marcus looked up at the hologram, then at the 3 impossibly beautiful alien women, then at the stars streaming past outside. Somewhere in the distance he could hear what sounded like alarm bells. "Why do I feel like my life just got infinitely more complicated?" he asked. Zephyr's smile was radiant and slightly apologetic. "Because, dear husband, it absolutely did. Part. Sure, 3 wives and a war fleet." The alarm bells weren't his imagination. As if summoned by his growing panic, the entire room began flashing red, and a voice that definitely wasn't Aria's boomed through hidden speakers. "Attention all personnel. Battle stations. Imperial war fleet detected at system's edge. This is not a drill." Marcus watched in fascination and terror as his 3 wives transformed from ethereal beauties into deadly warriors in the span of seconds. Zephyr's liquid metal dress flowed and reshaped itself into sleek armor that covered her from neck to toe. Verdania's ceremonial armor sprouted additional plating and weapons that seemed to grow from the jewels embedded in the surface. Solara's star-flecked robes became a tactical suit covered in holographic displays and control interfaces. "Who exactly is attacking us?" Marcus asked, trying not to sound as terrified as he felt. "My father," Zephyr said grimly, checking the charge on, a weapon that had materialized in her hand. "Emperor Nautilus of the Aquanus Empire. He's not pleased about my choice of husband." "Our fathers," Verdania corrected, her own weapon humming to life. "The Forest Council is equally unhappy." "As is the Desert Assembly," Solara added, her fingers dancing across holographic controls. "Apparently, marrying a human has violated about 17 different royal decrees." Marcus felt his stomach drop. "Your fathers are coming to kill me?" "Not just our fathers," Zephyr said with what he was beginning to recognize as her apologetic smile. "The combined fleets of 3 major galactic empires. About 4,000 ships, give or take a few hundred." 4,000? Marcus's voice climbed to a pitch he didn't know he could reach. "How many ships do we have?" "1," Solara replied cheerfully. "This one. We're going to die," Marcus stated with absolute certainty. "Probably not," Verdania said, though she didn't sound entirely convinced. "Human tactical thinking is supposedly unpredictable. Our war computers can't model it properly, which makes you potentially valuable in combat situations." "I've never been in combat. I work at a coffee shop." "Perfect," Zephyr said, grabbing his arm and pulling him toward what he assumed was the door. "Coffee preparation requires quick thinking, multitasking, and the ability to handle multiple demanding customers simultaneously. Excellent combat training." Marcus wanted to argue, but the room suddenly lurched sideways, sending him stumbling into Verdania's arms. She caught him easily, her strength surprising him. Through the transparent dome above, he could see distant flashes of light that he realized were weapons fire. "Aria!" Solara called out as they rushed through corridors that seemed to pulse with organic light. "Status report." The holographic assistant appeared beside them as they ran, matching their pace perfectly. 3,743 enemy vessels have dropped out of hyperspace at the system perimeter. They're demanding the immediate return of the 3 princesses and the execution of the human male for crimes against royal bloodlines. "Execution?" Marcus squeaked. "Standard penalty for unsanctioned royal marriages," Aria replied helpfully. "Usually involves being fed to carnivorous space creatures." "That's not helping," Marcus shouted. They burst through a doorway onto what had to be the ship's bridge. The circular room was dominated by a captain's chair surrounded by holographic displays showing the approaching fleet. Marcus had seen enough science fiction movies to recognize trouble when he saw it, and the sheer number of red dots on the tactical display definitely qualified as trouble. "Options?" Zephyr demanded, settling into the captain's chair with practiced ease. "We could surrender," Arya suggested, The princesses would likely face exile rather than execution. Not happening, Verdania said firmly. We could run, Solara added, her hands flying over control surfaces. Our ship is faster than anything in their fleets. They'll follow us everywhere, Zephyra replied. We need a permanent solution. Marcus found himself staring at the tactical display, his mind racing. 3 fleets converging from different directions, each fleet representing a different political system with different goals and methods. In his experience managing the coffee shop during rush hour, the key to handling multiple demanding groups was understanding what each one really wanted. What if we don't fight them? He said suddenly. The 3 princesses turned to look at him, with expressions ranging from confusion to concern for his sanity. Marcus, Verdania said gently, they're shooting at us. But they're not really shooting at us. Marcus continued, his thoughts gaining momentum. They're shooting at what we represent. 3 separate royal families just had their daughters marry outside their political systems. That's not a military threat, it's a political crisis. Solara's golden eyes widened with understanding. You want to turn this from a military confrontation into a political negotiation. Exactly, Marcus said, surprised by his own confidence. But not the kind they're expecting. The ship shuddered under weapons fire, and alarms wailed throughout the bridge. Whatever Marcus was planning, they needed to execute it fast. Arya, he called out, can you open a communication channel to all 3 fleets simultaneously? That would be highly irregular, the AI replied. Protocol dictates, forget protocol, Marcus interrupted. Can you do it? Yes, but do it. The holographic displays shifted, showing the stern faces of 3 individuals who were clearly used to being obeyed without question. Emperor Nautilus looked like an older, more intimidating version of Zephyra, with the same shifting blue-silver skin but cold, angry eyes. The Forest Council representative was a tall woman with bark-like skin and leaves for hair, her face carved from living wood. The Desert Assembly's leader was a man whose amber skin was covered in intricate tattoos that moved like living things. All 3 began speaking at once, their voices overlapping in a cacophony of royal outrage and demands for Marcus's immediate execution. Marcus took a deep breath and did something that had served him well in countless customer service situations. He smiled. Your Majesties, he said, his voice calm and respectful despite the fact that his knees were shaking. I believe we need to talk. Part 3. The Human Factor. The 3 royal leaders fell silent, apparently shocked that the human had dared to speak. Marcus could feel his wives' eyes on him, their expressions mixing hope with terror. The ship continued to shake under weapons fire, but he forced himself to stand straight and project confidence he definitely didn't feel. With respect, Your Majesties, Marcus continued, you're all here because you think I'm a threat to your daughters and your political systems. But what if I told you that instead of being a threat, our marriage could be the solution to problems you've been struggling with for decades? Emperor Nautilus's face contorted with rage. You dare suggest that some primitive human could understand the complexities of galactic politics? No, Your Majesty, Marcus replied calmly. I'm suggesting that sometimes being outside a system lets you see solutions that people inside the system can't. The Forest Council representative leaned forward, her wooden features creaking. Speak. Quickly, human. My patience grows thin. Marcus glanced at the tactical display, noting how the 3 fleets were positioned. Each one was maintaining distance from the others, even while pursuing the same target. Classic territorial behavior, just like customers during the morning coffee rush who all wanted service but didn't want to deal with each other. Your 3 empires have been locked in a Cold War for over a century, Marcus said, grateful for the galactic history briefing Arya had downloaded into his brain during the marriage ceremony. Trade disputes, territorial disagreements, resource conflicts. None of you trust the others enough to negotiate directly, but you're all spending massive resources maintaining military readiness against each other. The Desert Assembly leader's tattoos shifted into patterns that Marcus somehow understood meant cautious interest. Continue. Now your daughters have married the same man, Marcus said, gesturing to his wives. Under both human and alliance law, That makes me a legal representative of all three royal houses simultaneously. I'm not just married to three women, I'm married to three political systems. Zephyr's eyes widened as she caught on to his reasoning. You're suggesting we become a neutral mediating force. Exactly, Marcus said, warming to his theme. Instead of three separate empires competing against each other, you now have a shared interest. Your daughter's husband and any children from our marriages would be heirs to all three thrones. That gives you a reason to cooperate instead of compete. The ship lurched again, and Solara called out from her position at the tactical station. Shields at 30%. Whatever we're doing, we need to do it fast. Emperor Nautilus's expression had shifted from rage to calculation. You propose to turn our daughters into tools of political alliance? I propose to turn our marriage into the foundation for peace, Marcus corrected. Your daughters chose this path themselves. Princess Zephyra could have married any Aquanus noble. Princess Verdania had dozens of suitors from the forest worlds. Princess Solara was courted by the finest desert kingdom warriors. Instead, they chose to marry me, and they did it together. That tells me they were already thinking beyond the limitations of their individual empires. Verdania stepped forward, her golden patterns pulsing with conviction. He's right, grandmother, she said, addressing the Forest Council representative. We've been talking for years about the waste of resources, the missed opportunities for trade and cooperation. This marriage wasn't just about love. It was about creating possibilities. The human is cleverer than expected, the Desert Assembly leader admitted, his tattoos shifting to what Marcus interpreted as grudging respect. But intelligence alone does not guarantee success. What assurance do we have that this alliance would benefit all parties equally? Marcus felt inspiration strike. Because I'm human, he said simply. I don't belong to any of your political systems, which means I can't favor one over the others without weakening my own position. My success depends on all three empires prospering together. Solara added her voice to the discussion. The trade possibilities alone would increase each empire's wealth by an estimated 40% within 5 years. The technology exchange programs could advance our scientific development by decades. And the military cooperation, Zephyra continued, would allow us to redirect resources from defense against each other to exploration and expansion into unclaimed territories. The three royal leaders exchanged glances, and Marcus could practically see the calculations running behind their eyes. Emperors and politicians didn't stay in power by ignoring good deals when they saw them. The proposal has merit, Emperor Nautilus admitted grudgingly, but it would require unprecedented cooperation and trust. Trust that would be guaranteed by the marriage bonds, the Forest Council representative noted. Blood relations between royal houses have been the foundation of alliances throughout history, and the human factor provides balance, the Desert Assembly leader added. No single empire could dominate the alliance without risking the stability of the marriage itself. Marcus felt a surge of hope, but the ship chose that moment to remind everyone they were still under attack. The lights flickered, and Aria's hologram appeared beside him. Shields at 15%, she announced. Some of your fleets are still firing, your majesties. Emperor Nautilus barked orders in a language that sounded like whale song mixed with crystal chimes. The weapons fire from the Aquanus ships immediately ceased. The other two leaders quickly followed suit, issuing commands in their own languages. Very well, Emperor Nautilus said, his expression still stern but no longer murderous. We will consider this proposal, but there must be formal negotiations, treaty signings, and extensive legal frameworks established. Agreed, Marcus said, trying not to let his relief show too obviously. But first, could we maybe not be in a war zone while we work out the details? The Forest Council representatives' wooden features arranged themselves into what might have been a smile. The human shows wisdom. We will withdraw our fleets to neutral territory and establish a diplomatic station for negotiations. This will take months to arrange properly, the Desert Assembly leader warned. Treaties of this magnitude cannot be rushed. We have time, Zephyra said, settling back into her captain's chair with visible relief. And now we have something we've never had before. A reason to make it work. As the three royal leaders signed off to begin the complex process of converting a space battle into a diplomatic summit, Marcus sank into a nearby chair, his knees finally giving out from the stress. Verdania placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. That was either the bravest or most foolish thing I've ever witnessed. Probably both, Marcus admitted. I still can't believe that worked. It worked because you understood something our people have forgotten, Solara said, her golden eyes bright with admiration. Sometimes the solution to a complex problem is surprisingly simple. Arya's hologram flickered into view beside them. If I may observe, the statistical probability of success for your approach was approximately 3.7%. Most impressive odds beating, Mr. Webb. Marcus looked around the bridge at his three wives, each of whom was looking at him with expressions he'd never seen directed at him before. Respect, admiration, and something that might have been love. So what happens now? He asked. Zephyra's smile was radiant. Now we go home and figure out how to be married to each other while simultaneously running the largest diplomatic negotiation in galactic history. No pressure, Marcus muttered, but he was smiling too. Part 4, The Diplomatic Dance 3 Weeks. Later, Marcus stood in what had to be the most expensive conference room in the galaxy, watching three empires attempt to negotiate the future of galactic politics. The neutral station they'd established was a marvel of engineering, a massive structure built specifically for these talks. Every surface gleamed with precious metals and exotic materials, and the central conference chamber was large enough to hold a football game. Unfortunately, the negotiations were going about as well as Marcus had expected when you put three groups of politicians in a room together. The trade route through the nebula of whispers belongs to the Desert Assembly, shouted Ambassador Keth, his tattoos flashing angry red patterns. We've maintained those shipping lanes for 2 centuries. Maintained them poorly, retorted Ambassador Silas from the Forest Worlds, her bark-like skin creaking with indignation. Half the merchant vessels that use those routes report delays and technical failures. Both of your arguments are irrelevant, Ambassador Tidal from the Aquanus Empire interjected, his blue-silver skin rippling with annoyance. The nebula borders Aquanus space. We have prior claim by proximity. Marcus rubbed his temples, feeling a headache building. For 3 weeks, every discussion had devolved into arguments about historical grievances, territorial disputes, and who had insulted whom at various diplomatic functions over the past century. At this rate, they'd still be arguing when the heat, death of the universe arrived. His wives sat at the human delegation table trying to mediate between their peoples with varying degrees of success. Zephyra maintained diplomatic composure even when the Aquanus representatives questioned her choice of husband. Verdania used humor to diffuse tensions, though some of her jokes seemed to go over the other delegates' heads. Solara relied on facts and figures, presenting logical arguments that were systematically ignored in favor of emotional rhetoric. If I may interrupt, Marcus said, rising from his chair. The room fell silent, all eyes turning to him. Even after 3 weeks, his presence still surprised the various delegates. Most of them seemed to forget he was there until he spoke. Ambassador Keth, he continued, you mentioned that the Desert Assembly has maintained the trade routes for 2 centuries. How much has that maintenance cost your people? The ambassador's tattoos shifted to puzzled patterns. The annual cost is approximately 40 million standard credits, plus the opportunity cost of ships and personnel diverted from other duties. Ambassador Silas, how much does the Forest World spend annually dealing with delayed shipments and damaged goods from those same trade routes? The wooden woman's leaves rustled as she considered. Roughly 60 million credits in insurance claims and alternative shipping arrangements. And Ambassador Tidal, what does it cost the Aquanus Empire to patrol the borders of the nebula to protect your territorial claims? 35 million credits annually, Tidal replied, his skin rippling with understanding of where this was going. Marcus nodded. So between the three of you, you're spending 135 million credits every year on a trade route that doesn't work well for anyone. What if instead of arguing about who owns it, we talked about how to make it work better for Everyone? He walked to the central holographic display and pulled up a map of the disputed region. The Desert Assembly has the technical expertise for maintaining shipping infrastructure. The Forest Worlds have the best merchant marine in the galaxy. The Aquanus Empire has the most advanced navigation systems. Instead of competing, why not cooperate? Zephyra picked up his thread smoothly. A joint administration. Desert Assembly maintains the physical infrastructure. Forest Worlds provide merchant security and logistics. Aquanus Empire handles navigation and traffic control. Shared costs, shared profits, Verdania added, and shared responsibility for keeping the routes safe and efficient. Solara brought up financial projections on the display. Preliminary calculations suggest this approach would reduce costs by 40%, while increasing throughput by 60%. All three empires would profit more than under the current system. The three ambassadors exchanged glances, and Marcus could see them working through the implications. Politicians were ultimately practical people. They might enjoy a good argument, but they liked profitable solutions even more. The proposal has merit, Ambassador Tidal admitted, but it would require unprecedented levels of cooperation and trust. Trust that's guaranteed by the marriage bonds, Marcus pointed out. Any empire that betrays the alliance betrays their own princess. And any dispute resolution would involve not just political representatives, but family members, Zephyra added. It's much harder to declare war on your daughter's husband than on a faceless political entity. Ambassador Silas's wooden features creaked into what might have been a smile. The human continues to surprise. This approach could work for more than just trade routes. That's the idea, Marcus said. Every conflict we've discussed over the past 3 weeks follows the same pattern. 3 groups competing for resources instead of cooperating to increase the available resources. Over the following hours, Marcus watched his simple coffee shop logic work its way through centuries of galactic politics. The principle was straightforward. Instead of fighting over a limited pie, find ways to make the pie bigger. But applying it to interstellar empires required creativity and compromise. The breakthrough came when Ambassador Keth suggested applying the cooperative model to the disputed mining rights in the crystal fields. Within minutes, all 3 delegations were sketching out joint ventures, technology sharing agreements, and cultural exchange programs. This is remarkable, Aria said, her hologram appearing beside Marcus as the negotiations continued around them. The statistical models predicted these talks would fail within the first week. Instead, you've achieved more progress in one afternoon than most diplomatic summits manage in years. It helps that everyone wants this to work, Marcus replied, watching his wives skillfully guide their respective delegations through the complex details. They just needed permission to admit it. As the day wore on, Marcus began to understand something important about his role in this alliance. He wasn't just a husband or a political symbol. He was a translator, not of languages, but of perspectives. His human viewpoint, unencumbered by centuries of galactic politics, let him see solutions that were invisible to people too close to the problems. When the formal session ended for the day, Marcus found himself alone with his wives in their private quarters aboard the station. The space was luxurious but felt like home, decorated with personal items from all 4 of their cultures. I'm proud of you, Zephyra said, settling beside him on the couch that seemed to be made of crystallized starlight. Today you weren't just mediating disputes, you were creating possibilities. The cooperative framework will revolutionize galactic commerce, Solara added, her golden eyes bright with excitement as she pulled up holographic economic projections. We're looking at potential prosperity increases across all 3 empires. Verdania laughed, the sound like silver bells. And here we thought we were just marrying a handsome human. Turns out we accidentally started a diplomatic revolution. Marcus looked at the 3 extraordinary women who had somehow become his family. I still can't believe this is my life. Believe it, Zephyra said, taking his hand. Because tomorrow, we start negotiations on the really complicated stuff. What's more complicated than rewriting galactic trade law? Marcus asked. Then we go home, Solara said simply. Which home? All of them, his wives replied in unison. and Marcus realized that for the first time in his life, he actually knew what home meant. Part 5. The New Paradigm 6. Months after the diplomatic summit began, Marcus stood on the observation deck of the new Alliance station, watching the most incredible sight in galactic history. 3 massive fleets that had arrived to wage war were now working together to construct the largest cooperative space station ever built. Aquinas engineering ships worked alongside desert assembly construction vessels, while Forest World supply convoys delivered materials to both. The station itself was a marvel of combined technologies, its biomechanical Forest World structure infused with Aquinas hydro systems and powered by desert assembly energy crystals. The economics alone are staggering, Solara said, joining him at the viewport with her ever-present holographic displays. Trade between our 3 empires has increased by 300%. Joint technology development is advancing at unprecedented rates, and the shared colonial expansion program has identified 12 potentially habitable worlds. Marcus nodded, still amazed by how much had changed. The morning coffee rush seemed like a lifetime ago, though he still found himself applying those same principles to galactic politics. Understand what people want, find efficient ways to deliver it, and keep everyone happy enough to come back tomorrow. The cultural exchange programs are showing remarkable results too, Verdania added, settling beside them with her characteristic grace. Desert assembly poetry is becoming popular in Forest World schools. Aquinas music is inspiring new art forms throughout the desert kingdoms. And Forest World philosophy is revolutionizing Aquinas diplomatic training. And human perspectives are apparently revolutionizing everything else, Zephyrus said, joining their group with a satisfied smile. The final treaty documents are ready for signing. Marcus looked at the treaty that would officially establish the Triad Alliance. Hundreds of pages of carefully negotiated agreements covering everything from trade regulations to conflict resolution procedures. At its heart was a simple concept: cooperation produced better results than competition. Are you ready for this? Zephira asked him. Marcus considered the question seriously. Ready to become one of the most influential political figures in galactic history? Ready to spend his life traveling between 3 different worlds, helping to maintain the most complex political alliance ever attempted? Ready to raise children who would be heirs to 3 different empires? Probably not, he admitted. But I'm excited to try. The signing ceremony took place in the main assembly hall, with representatives from dozens of other galactic powers in attendance. Word of the Triad Alliance had spread throughout known space, and everyone wanted to see if this unprecedented cooperation could actually work. Emperor Nautilus, the Forest Council matriarch, and the Desert Assembly High Commander signed with great ceremony, using pens crafted from materials native to each empire. Then, in a moment that would be recorded in history books for millennia, they handed the pens to Marcus. As the human representative of the Alliance, his signature made the treaty official under galactic law. The room erupted in applause, but Marcus barely heard it. He was thinking about how he'd gone from serving coffee to literally helping reshape galactic civilization. Ladies and gentlemen, Emperor Nautilus announced, his voice carrying clearly through the hall, I present to you the Triad Alliance and its first human ambassador, Marcus Webb. The applause grew louder, and Marcus found himself at the podium looking out at representatives from across the galaxy. Some were humanoid, others were completely alien, but all of them were watching him with expressions of curiosity and respect. 6 months ago, Marcus began, his voice steady despite his nerves. I thought I was signing up for a reality dating show. Instead, I accidentally married 3 of the most remarkable women in the galaxy and stumbled into the opportunity to help create something unprecedented. Gentle laughter rippled through the audience. But the real lesson here isn't about accidental marriages or diplomatic breakthroughs. It's about what becomes possible when we stop seeing differences as obstacles and start seeing them as opportunities. The Aquinas Empire, the Forest Worlds, and the Desert Assembly each brought unique strengths to this alliance. Separately, they were impressive. Together, they're revolutionary. He looked at his wives, who were watching him with expressions of love and pride that still amazed him. The human perspective that everyone keeps talking about isn't anything special. It's just the perspective of someone who wasn't trapped by the assumption that things had to stay the way they'd always been. Every species, every culture, every individual has the potential to see solutions that others miss. The key is being willing to listen and being brave enough to try something new. As he spoke, Marcus realized he was outlining not just the philosophy behind the Triad Alliance, but a new approach to galactic civilization itself. Instead of the traditional empire building and territorial competition, they were creating a model based on cooperation and mutual benefit. The Triad Alliance is just the beginning, he concluded. We're proving that cooperation produces better results than competition, that diversity of thought leads to better solutions, and that the future belongs to those brave enough to try something new. We invite all of you to join us in building that future. The applause was thunderous now, and Marcus could see representatives from other empires already discussing among themselves. The Triad Alliance wouldn't be the only cooperative agreement for long. Later, in their private quarters aboard the station, Marcus and his wives celebrated with a quiet dinner. The food was a fusion of dishes from all four of their cultures, and the conversation flowed easily between languages and topics. So what's next? Marcus asked as they sat together on the observation deck, watching the stars. Next we go home, Zafira said. All of our homes. The Alliance needs to be more than just documents and trade agreements. It needs to be lived. We'll spend time on each world, Verdania explained, learning about each other's cultures, meeting our people, showing them that this alliance is real and beneficial. And we'll start planning for the next generation, Solara added with a smile that made Marcus's heart skip. Children who will grow up as citizens of three worlds, natural ambassadors for the Alliance. Marcus looked at these three incredible women who had somehow become his family, then at the bustling construction outside where three former enemies were building something remarkable together. You know, he said, I think I'm going to like being married to three alien princesses, even if it means helping to run three galactic empires, Zephyra teased. Even if it means changing the course of galactic history, Verdania added. Even if it means our children will probably be more powerful than most planetary governments? Solara concluded. Marcus considered this, then smiled. Especially because of all that. I went from serving coffee to helping serve the galaxy. That's a pretty good promotion. His wives laughed, and the sound echoed through their quarters and out into the stars, where three fleets that had come to wage war were instead building the foundation for a new kind of civilization. The human who had accidentally married into royalty had become something none of them had expected, the architect of a better future, and this was just the beginning.